February is American Heart Month, and one of the best ways for us to lower our risk of heart disease is to move our bodies. And since it's February and statistics show that most people have already given up on their New Year's resolutions, which often include a fitness goal, I thought now would be a good time to share how, after failing to stick with a fitness routine for basically my entire adult life, I finally changed my approach 2.5 years ago and it stuck. Today, I'm going to share what I did differently and why I think it finally worked. Hi, I'm Allison Egidi, a pediatric sleep and wellness coach and a mom of two. I love to help parents find solutions. This is How Long Till Bedtime. I started playing soccer when I was 5 years old and continued to be a competitive athlete throughout high school. At one point, I was fit enough to do two-a-day practices in two different sports, soccer and football. So I was attending 4 intense practices 5 days a week throughout most of the summer. I worked through many injuries. I could do a whole episode on all the ridiculous injuries I had. And I did a lot of what I would call gutting it out. I was constantly pushing myself as hard as I could, and it was working. And in college, my closest friend and I decided we should get back on the horse to get after some sports here. So we decided to train for a half marathon. One day I was on an 8-mile run and I stepped on a pine cone in just the wrong way, and it really tweaked my knee, the one that I had already had surgery on. Not only did I end up not running that half marathon, that was basically the end of my running altogether. I couldn't even run a mile without that knee swelling up terribly. I didn't feel like going through another surgery when I wasn't really trying to compete for anything, so I just kind of dropped running altogether without thinking much of it. After college and throughout my adult life, I would go through short spurts of working out using the bike, the elliptical, or some strength training, but I'd do it for a short period and then push myself too hard, tweak some old injury, and then stop. I would rinse and repeat this process many times over the next 15 years. And over the years, I would hear lots of people on podcasts or social media talking about the importance of just moving your body. Eventually, in June of 2019, I decided to give up on the idea of becoming a really fit athlete again who did intense workouts. And I decided to focus on movement and strength, just like they had been recommending. I completely changed my mindset and my approach to fitness. I focused on my why. This was the biggest change that I made. I decided that my new why was that I wanted to live a long, healthy life. I want to see my girls grow up. I want to meet and play with my grandchildren. And movement is pretty key to longevity. So I didn't sign up for any programs like I had in the past, and I didn't have any big goals that I was working towards. I just committed to moving my body for 30 minutes 3 times a week. And going on a walk counted. Before, I would have completely brushed that off as ridiculous, but that's where I started. And at that point in time, I didn't know that I had an autoimmune disease and it was causing terrible inflammation. So even a 30-minute walk around my hilly neighborhood resulted in my ankles being sore for days. I kept chalking it up to all the ankle sprains I'd had, but it was more than that. But I kept moving, and slowly the aches started to decrease. And I could do what I like to call a walk-a-jog, where I might jog for a couple minutes and then walk for a few minutes, then jog again. And I thought that I would kind of be stuck there forever. But I kept going, and ultimately I did a little walk-a-jog 5K with some of my family members. And then winter came, and I hate the cold. So in the winter, I transitioned to indoor Peloton workouts. I was lucky enough to get the Peloton tread, and I fell in love with a workout system for the first time. I really liked it because I could just pick the length of time that I wanted to work out, choose an instructor that I liked to lead me through these workouts, and I would be off. And there were always new classes to take, so I was never bored. I suddenly realized after about 6 months that my commitment to moving my body at least 3 times each week had stuck. I wasn't perfect every week, but I was solid probably 5 out of 6 weeks. And here I am now 2.5 years later, and I can say that I still consistently work out 3 to 5 times a week. And now that my inflammation is much more under control, I actually can do really hard workouts, and the old athlete in me feels really good about that. So while I'm not someone who loves to run, because I get bored, I now can go out and run a few miles without being in pain. So that feels like a big win. And I am that person who likes to compete with people on the Peloton leaderboard. So that helps me push myself on days that I want to push a little harder. So when I think about what helped me stay motivated over the last couple of years, there are a handful of things that I think come into play. I continue to remind myself about my why. I want to live a long, healthy life. And truth be told, on days I don't feel that motivated to work out, I remind myself that moving my body could be the thing that prevents me from dying young. I realize that that sounds morbid and probably like a very weird motivator, but it works for me. And I gotta tell you, I felt very validated recently when I listened to a Huberman Lab podcast episode where he said that research shows that one of the absolute best ways to achieve a goal is by focusing on the outcome you don't want, the thing that the goal would help you avoid. That made me realize that telling myself this walk could help me not die could have actually played a bigger role in me sticking with the workouts than I had even realized. I'm going to link to that podcast episode in the show notes in the event that you are interested in geeking out on the science of setting and achieving goals. Something else that has helped me stick with my goal is telling my girls about my why. I don't get quite as morbid with them, but whenever they ask why I need to work out at this time, or if they come down and ask, when am I going to be done working out? I always tell them with a smile that, hey, I'm moving my body or I'm lifting these weights because I want to be strong and I want to live as long as possible and I want to be here to play with your babies. This is also what I tell them when they ask about the diet that I'm on that helps manage my autoimmune disease. So I don't focus on the food itself. I focus on I have to eat food that helps my body because mommy has Hashimoto's. And so they could tell you my whole diet at this point, and that the reason I have to eat that way is because I want to live a long time. Sharing my why with my girls does help me stay motivated. I want them to see me taking care of my body because I want them to value taking care of their bodies as they grow up. The third thing that I think helped me is kind of random, but I think that the Apple Watch helped, particularly early on. I purchased the watch right when I started on my walking journey, and I found it surprisingly rewarding to close that 30-minute exercise ring. So I know some people really like their Fitbits or some other exercise tracker. I now not only wear the Apple Watch, but I also wear a Whoop. But I find these tracking devices very motivating. The fourth thing that I think helped, particularly as I was getting started, was journaling. At least 3 to 5 times each week, I would write in my journal. And in addition to doing my gratitude journaling, I would write a list of 5 to 10 things that either described me as the person that I want to be or described a goal that I was working on. And I would write it as if it were already true or as if I had already accomplished that goal. So, for example, as it relates to my fitness goal of moving my body, I would write, and I still do write this, I am fit. I move my body for 30 minutes at least 3 times per week. Now, when I write it, I write 5 times a week. But when I started, I would write 3 times a week. Apparently, writing goals in this way over and over again trains or rewires your brain to think and act as if you are that person who accomplished that goal. So, what that means for me is when I write this consistently, I actually feel less resistance to doing the workout or to going on that walk. So, I have to say that I think it works. Whenever I fall off the train of wanting to work out, if I feel more resistance or I'm starting to skip more workouts, I always go back to this. And in a matter of a week, it starts to relieve some of that resistance and I start to feel more motivated. So I realize that might sound like a weird approach, and we're not going to dive into the science behind it today, but I would recommend giving it a try. Try it for 6 to 8 weeks. It takes a little while for it to kick in initially, and I swear it helps you as far as feeling more motivated or at least feeling less resistance. The last big thing that has helped me is the Peloton, as I mentioned. So I don't think Peloton is the answer for everyone, and I have no connection to Peloton whatsoever, other than I feel like I've given them all of my money. Um, but I felt like it was finally the, I don't know, workout helper that I needed. So I've tried personal trainers, I've tried joining a gym, I've tried different online products or platforms, and none of them really stuck. And this just happens to be the one that really worked for me. I like that there are new workouts, that I don't get bored. I like that I have found a handful of instructors that I relate to. And so for me, this works better than any gym or online program that I've ever tried. And I've loved my tread so much that I'm getting the bike, even though I've never done cycling. And hopefully one day it will actually be delivered. So I would just say that finding a program that worked for me allowed me to enjoy my journey more. But I will tell you, when I first started for 6 months, I had no program. I just committed to the movement. So I don't think it's critical. I don't think it should be an excuse. But I think long term, having something that helps you on this journey, so whether it be a gym that you love, a trainer that you love, or some other online platform, I think can really help on those days where you don't want to think about it and you need a little extra push. It can be helpful. So, something to think about. If you haven't found a platform or that extra help you need yet, don't give up. I swear I tried everything until I found Peloton. So, keep trying until you find what really works well for you. And there are also a few things that I think helped me not get discouraged or abandon my goal of moving my body, because there are definitely weeks where I did not get my movement in. By no means have I been perfect for the last 2.5 years. And some of the reasons that I think I was able to stay motivated and that I actually still actively felt like I was someone committed to moving 3 times a week were listening to my body. So, as I mentioned, I have an autoimmune disease. I have Hashimoto's, and that makes me very prone to inflammation. I do a lot to manage it, but I have been on a major health journey for the last 2 years, and it has taught me to actually hear my body. So, to hear it and to listen to it. So, if my body's achy or not feeling right on some particular day, I'm not going to push it. I'm not actually preparing to compete for anything. So I will just do something on those days. It may be going for a walk or doing yoga. A lot of times it's just, okay, I'm just going to walk the dogs today and that's it. And I still count that as a win because remember, my goal is to move my body. So I think also just having that mindset of moving my body has helped. But listening to my body has really helped. The second one, and this one is huge for me personally, and it's probably going to make you laugh, and it's also going to make you think I'm about 100 years old, is stretching. I often joke about the fact that I joined the Peloton Century Club by doing 100 stretching classes long before I hit 100 classes in any other category. So if I do anything more than go for a walk, I always follow it up with 10 minutes of full body stretching. I think this is big for me because I had all of those old injuries. So if I literally only have 30 minutes on a given day to work out, I will only actually work out for 20 minutes so that I can save 10 minutes for stretching. That's how hardcore I am. I build it into every workout. And let me tell you, if you are someone who works out and you feel like your body tightens up afterwards or is sore or achy the next day, mine was my neck would tighten up a lot, particularly if I'd done any running or weightlifting. And the stretching is a game changer. So don't knock it till you try it, but it helps so much. And lastly, I would say that I just no longer stress when I get off track for a week or maybe even a month. I mean, last month is a perfect example. January was ridiculous. Can I get an amen if you also had a ridiculous January? So for us, we started out, we were out of town and we had flight cancellations and didn't even get back when we were supposed to. Then we came back to no power, no heat. We didn't have power or heat for a week. We were bouncing between hotels and rentals. And then we got COVID. So I was feeling a little less than stellar during that period. And it just felt like it was one thing after another. So my workouts were very sporadic. And since it was so cold and I hate the cold, I was even punting walking the dogs most days to my husband. So that usually is my go-to of I know I'll at least get 30 minutes of movement in because I walk the dogs, but I wasn't even doing that because I hate the cold. So the me of 3 years ago, particularly given that it was January, would have decided that's it. I failed at my fitness goal and that would have been the end of it. But I definitely don't have that mindset anymore. At no point was I thinking, oh my gosh, I'm failing. I'm no longer someone who moves my body. I just spent zero time beating myself up over any of those missed workouts or even not walking the dogs. And I just hopped back on the train. And I started back slowly, actually, because it was so sporadic that knowing myself and my old injuries, I was doing walks and doing little hikes on the tread versus going on runs and doing sprints. So, that's a total change from where I was, say, 3 years ago. I, at no point, was beating myself up. So I think taking that mindset of when things go off track, which they will, particularly if you're a parent, you're not going to beat yourself up. And because I like to write in my journal, I am fit. I am someone who moves my body at least 3 times a week. That's just who I am now. I have written that so much that even going off course for a short period doesn't change that that's how I view myself. So I realize that you've probably heard someone mention all the things that I have just talked about. But in the event that you're like me and you may need to hear something over and over again from multiple people before you decide to change the way you're approaching something that's not working, I hope that this episode is one more seed to remind you that just because your fitness goals haven't stuck in the past doesn't mean that they can't stick in the future. You just need to find the way to approach it that works for you. If you've also found a way to approach your fitness goals that have stuck, I'd actually love to hear about it. So shoot me a DM on Instagram at Sleep and Wellness Coach and let me know how you approach it and why you think it's stuck. As always, thanks for joining me. I hope that you'll come back again next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to How Long Till Bedtime. To learn how we can work together to improve your child's sleep, please visit sleepandwellnesscoach.com.